Welcome all to the second webinar, dedicated to the third section of the Council of Europe's Toolkit for Language Support. This section is on activities of language support and consists of 24 tools, which can be divided into 5 subsections. In the first subsection, you will find some suggestions that help you with your first encounters with refugees. The second section offers activities to learn particular vocabulary. In the third, you find tools designed to stimulate a reflection on learning languages. The fourth includes 15 communicative scenarios that have been carefully selected based on the needs of refugees and asylum seekers. In the fifth subsection, you will find a series of instruments aimed at helping refugees to orient themselves in the surrounding areas and to interact with the host community. And now, let's start our virtual tour on the Toolkit's website.
In the first subsection, Getting Started, you will find Tool 34, which will give you some helpful recommendations to help you with initial meetings with refugees. For example, it is important to be friendly and to make other members of the group feel at ease, and to start with a simple conversation to understand what are their skills and their goals for learning. Always remember to meet them halfway with their needs. Carefully select something appropriate to ask your group, making sure to always respect their privacy. If there's no common language amongst your group, such as English, which could help to communicate with them during your first meetings, make sure to use short, simple phrases in Italian when offering linguistic support to beginners. Use images. Be careful to select ones that are suitable for your group. Tool 22, which we have seen in the first webinar, could be helpful to you in this purpose. Use real objects and simple photos with a single figure for beginner-level learners so as not to create confusion about their meanings. And now let's look at the second subsection, Learning Vocabulary. As you can imagine, this lesson covers a central role in the apprehension of a language. Here you will find 3 tools that will give you very helpful suggestions on the techniques to use for learning vocabulary relative to everyday life and to explain their exact feelings. For example, in Tool 35, the importance of using images to create a precise personal catalog to help with the language support activities is stressed again, in this case in regards to the comprehension of baseline vocabulary. Next, there are 3 activity proposals that involve the use of images. Flashcards to learn new words, making flashcards with new words to learn on one side and their respective image on the other. This could be very useful for various activities carried out in class. Using a mix of flashcards to organize words. In this activity, you will need to use the flashcards with the image face down. Encourage students to divide the flashcards into groups or themes, and then ask them to describe the word that they see. For example, the apple is a fruit, or food. Using pictures to create spoken or written text. In this activity, you will need to place the flashcards on a table with the image side facing up. Remind learners to use the images belonging to the same group or theme. Learners need to work in a group to create simple phrases based on the images. For example, I go to the market and I buy vegetables. You can invite them to pronounce the phrases, or if possible, to write them down. Here are some example images to use, but you must create your own personal catalog for the various activities. The third subsection, titled Thinking About Language Learning, highlights the importance of reflection in effective learning. This section provides 2 tools to use to help refugees to think about themselves in the languages they know and to reflect on their language learning. The reflection activity in Tool 39 can be used as an oral exercise or a written exercise. It is important to repeat this activity before and after every meeting so that reflection becomes a natural part of the learning process. The fourth subsection, titled Scenarios for Language Support, contains 15 scenarios, communicative situations related to the needs of the refugees. The purpose of these scenarios is to help the volunteers that offer language support to prepare informal activities. The scenarios are constructed of a series of communicative situations related to real-world contexts that the refugees may find themselves in, pertaining to comprehending spoken interactions, but also reading, writing, and listening activities. The scenarios are centered around different communicative situations listed in Tool 31, and the communicative functions highlighted in Tool 32, which we talked about in the first webinar. Every scenario is presented in the following way. Aims, communicative situations, materials, and language activities, which can be modified to better help the needs of the group. The 15 scenarios are starting to socialize, using a mobile phone, using apps like Google Maps, finding out about social services, using health services, shopping, buying clothes, shopping, buying credit for a mobile phone, food, inviting someone to a meal, finding your way in town, the local library, looking for training opportunities, looking for a job, finding accommodation, using postal and banking services, school and college, and socializing within the local community. You can use these following scenarios in the order listed, but feel free to use them in any order you want, based on the needs of your group. Let's look at Tool 50, looking for a job. Here you will find the aims of the section, communicative situations such as how to exchange information about jobs and how to communicate with employers. Materials you will need for the 5 recommended activities, from which you can choose those more aligned to the needs of your group. Here also you have available sample materials, which you can use as a model to prepare the suggested activities. The last subsection, mapping journeys and interacting with the host community, contains 3 tools with the goal of helping refugees to talk about past trips they've made, as well as trips they would like to make in the future. The tools in this subsection can be a great help to foster their orientation in surrounding territory and to interact with the community that they live in. As an example, Tool 56 offers some recommendations on how to plan activities to help refugees interact with the surrounding community. 1, deciding where to go. 2, organizing the trip. 3, getting ready. And 4, after the trip, writing about the experience. Finally, in the Resources tab on the Toolkit website, you can also find a list of all the tools, a glossary, a web directory with a list of sites that could be helpful for volunteers, and a selection of links. The second webinar concludes here. Thank you for following along, and thank you for your work with the guests at JNRC.